Herzlich willkommen im neuen Jahr, liebe Zuschauer, Zuhörer. Gutes Neues und bereits das siebte Gespräch. Ich freue mich sehr, heute mit der Anna Stone von GoodDollar und meinem guten Freund und Mitwirkenden in einem anderen Projekt, Malik. Ja, wir machen es auf Englisch. Wir haben gesagt, immer dann, wenn wir einen Gast haben, sprechen wir auf ihre Sprache. Und das ist heute Anna und sie spricht Englisch. Welcome, Anna from Tel Aviv, from GoodDollar. Welcome to our live stream.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to join you guys today.
Cool, that's great. And also, as I said, introduced already before in Swiss German, Malik, he is from the Dezentrum. It's a think tank who is checking the implications of digitalization and the society, and they love experiments and they do a lot of experiments in this matter. And you, Anna, you are from the marketing team from GoodDollar. You're situated right now in Tel Aviv. You also have part of the team in New York. Let's go into this and talk about GoodDollar.
Perfect.
All right, GoodDollar. To roughly understand, it would be great if you really on a top level explain to us what is GoodDollar doing, what does it has to do with UBI, Universal Basic Income, and how can people participate in that project?
Sure, great, perfect. So to start at a high level, I would say that GoodDollar is a suite of products, actually a suite of different software products that at the end of the day have a goal to let any single person that has a cell phone collect a digital income. Okay, so the idea is that the money to provide every human being alive with some sort of fundamental economic assets is out there, that the money is out there to fund such an initiative, and that every single person should have access to those funds. So the GoodDollar project is actually an initiative that's designed to build incentives for those who have money to use that money in a basic income network that will enable any human being alive to collect a stream of that income every day or every week. Okay, so every person can access digital income, which then they can use with either in the digital economy online, or have a way that they can move into their native currency. So the idea between GoodDollar and UBI is, first of all, it's based off of a global concept of income. So we're not coming to it from a nation state level. We're actually coming to it from a pan-national level, from a global perspective. We're coming to it from the perspective that it's not funded by governments, it's funded by people, okay? So myself, yourself, any company, any individual, any philanthropist actually can participate in supporting or funding this global digital basic income network. And additionally, it's based off of doing it in a way that's sustainable, okay? So doing it in a way that incentivizes people to actually bring money into the system so that the basic income is developed and done sustainably. And it's based off of, we've very much been inspired by basic income advocates from the past hundreds of years, actually, around this idea that if you're a human being alive, you deserve some baseline economic security. And what we've done is we've actually started to update that concept for a fully global and fully digital and digitized world. So that's a little bit behind GoodDollar.
Okay. Hey, thanks a lot very much to this. One question from me up ahead. We also think universal basic income as something giving every human being a kind of amount of money to live off. Did I understood it right or wrong that you're focused with GoodDollar, you're rather focusing on people who can give and people who need would then claim and take it? Or is the idea that everybody who joins and participates is always claiming and getting this digital universal basic income, or is it rather to correct the inequality and lift up people out of poverty?
It's a great question, because the answer is that there are multiple ways that I can participate in the system. Okay, so but before I answer the specifics, I'll back up a little bit and zoom out. Like I mentioned to you, core to this belief of this project is, number one, the money is out there for us to accomplish the goals that we set. Okay, so we know this across a range of different areas of scarcity. It's not that there's not enough food to feed the world. It's that the way food is distributed and where the markets are and how the markets function, it leaves us with a number of people that are struggling with hunger. So we take a similar approach to basic income, that the capital is out there. There's enough capital in this world to enable every human being alive to have a baseline level of economic security. Okay, this is one core belief to the project. The second core belief to the project is that in our hearts, people want to do good. Okay, that in the heart of hearts, that we actually really truly believe in the good of people, which is the good behind GoodDollar. It's focused off of individuals and communities and societies wanting to do good for the world and the interconnected nature of all of our security and well-being. And that if we can lower the barriers to entry of what it takes for an individual to do good, that we will be able to build a system that has mass levels of participation. Okay? So when you ask a question about GoodDollar, which is how do I participate? What's my role in the ecosystem? The goal in the ecosystem is actually to create a basic income network where you can both collect the basic income and support the basic income, okay, in multiple ways. And so for example, and this is through our economic model, which is essentially encourages people to lock and save their money through the GoodDollar mechanism, and basically splits the interest that they earn off of that money, okay? So that if I, as an individual, I decide that I'm going to, let's say, put my $100 from my paycheck that I save in the GoodDollar trust, I know that the interest generated off of my 100 GoodDollars is going both to create basic income for people and also pay me back, okay? That's the supporting, how someone can support the network. Claimers, the idea of receiving it, I also claim and receive GoodDollars, okay? And this is because with my GoodDollars, I actually can contribute to the ecosystem in other ways, okay? So what am I doing with my GoodDollars? I'm not someone who necessarily needs my GoodDollars for food or for basic needs, but I'm using my GoodDollars to participate in the digital economy. So I'm using my GoodDollars to actually buy design services from a graphic designer in Venezuela. I'm using my GoodDollars to fund some of the social entrepreneurship projects on GoodDollar. I used my GoodDollars to actually buy web design from another designer that we had in Zimbabwe, I think it was. So actually the idea is that let's forget what we know about traditional philanthropy in terms of donors providing to aid recipients, and let's actually imagine a world where we all can contribute to the welfare of one another, depending on our own ability to contribute.
Great. Hey, sounds a little bit like a perpetuum mobile for money. I would love you, Malik, to dig deeper into the crypto and the questions around it. Thanks, Anna, for this explanation. I think it gave us a rough roof of what's it about. And yeah, please go ahead, Malik.
Thank you very much, Silvan, for the introduction, and Anna as well for explaining the high-level mechanics of GoodDollar. I mean, both Silvan and I, we checked it out. So we signed up and we were able to collect the GoodDollar. You have to wait a little bit to be eligible to recollect it. And maybe you can go a little bit more into the specifics here. So as an individual, I'm able to create an account, right? And I can do that with social sign up. and then claim good dollars. Correct?
Yes, you got it.
And I mean, where are these good dollars coming from? So you're minting them somewhere. Basically, how is this mechanic working? Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure. So we actually, I'll explain the endowment model, which is actually a major inspiration for our work. So when you hear about an endowment or a trust model, is essentially a strategy for how you finance non-revenue generating activities, okay? So universities use this, charitable foundations use this. This is a popular financial model for basically, how do I create operating income for my nonprofit where I'm not spending all of my time and my money just doing fundraising, okay? So the idea is actually that if you can collect a large enough trust, right? If you can collect a large enough amount of principal, that then you can use that interest as your operating capital, right? To pay your salaries, your fees, your rent, etc. So what we've done is we've actually taken this model, which is deployed by nonprofit organizations globally, all over the world. And what we've done is we've said, how would this model work in a way, in a basic income context, right? To actually deliver on this use case of basic income. And so what we do is we actually, we've basically taken this same concept and we've built it on a decentralized public blockchain of Ethereum, okay? So what we've enabled, and stop me if I go too much into the tech here, but what we're doing is we're operating within the field of decentralized finance, okay? Decentralized finance is basically finance done via smart contracts on the blockchain, okay? So you don't need a company, you don't need financial registration. Me as a user don't need an account. All I have is my blockchain wallet and my blockchain funds, right? And based off of how these basically different contracts provide different services, okay? So we talked a little bit about savings and loans, right? Today, if I make money, I save my money, my bank will pay me interest for my funds if I save it in a bank. Why? Or a little bit of interest, maybe negative interest now, actually. But at one point in time, I actually heard they did pay interest. But the idea is that why am I paid interest? Because those funds are then taken and used by the bank to loan out to other people, okay? So basically in DeFi, there have been new blockchain companies that have written smart contracts that perform the same function. You deposit your funds into the contract, those funds are lent out. The person who owns the capital receives an interest payment, right? So first of all, that's the first part of the model. Like, where does the money come from? How is it sustainable? That's where the first part of the money comes from. Is so we've taken a certain amount of funds, we've locked them as our principal. The interest, there's interest generated based off of that, and we move that interest into a treasury, okay? It's called the good dollar treasury or the good dollar reserve. And this is essentially our Federal Reserve for the good dollar, okay? This is our treasury that actually collateralizes the currency, if you will. And so as interest is generated and as interest is moved into the good or the treasury, if you will, new good dollars are minted, okay? And so essentially, what do we do with those good dollars? We actually then take those good dollars and we split them, okay? Part of them go to the person who is entitled to earn interest off of their capital, the person that actually staked their money. And the rest of them go to the daily distribution to be distributed as basic income, which are the good dollars that you claim in your wallet and I claim in my wallet. And every day, There's a different distribution based upon how much interest was generated and how many people are claiming that day. So that's a little bit more into the model of where does the money come from. Now, why does this matter? Because I think that's also important. The reason why it's important is that it means that GoodDollar isn't just a token that's out there in the air, that's not connected to the value of any other currency, okay? Instead, within GoodDollar, there is actual, real, stable money that is backing the GoodDollar, okay? So that even though GoodDollar is not a stable, it's not a stable currency, it's not $1, it's a different price, okay? But the important thing is that it's backed by real money, okay? Which is a system that all essentially, many fiat currencies use, many financial instruments use, is collateralizing currency when you mint it.
Thank you very much for explaining that a little bit more into detail. So I saw that you launched in September, right? And until now,
yes.
You have almost 50,000 people claiming the GoodDollars.
Yep.
And how is the distribution worldwide? Is there like a few countries that are claiming most of the GoodDollars? Is there like a hotspot around Israel where you're from? Or is it distributed all over the world?
Sure. So we have users in over 180 countries. So I have to say that, like, in terms of a global basic income experiment, I don't know of one that's currently operating in so many countries simultaneously, which is, as I mentioned, the idea is that with digitalization, globalization is such a part of that, right? So there's that. Within the countries, yes, we certainly have communities where we are more popular. Our leading countries are Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, Nigeria. We also have, a few other European countries, other Western countries, but those are our top countries in terms of number of users and the activity of recurring users. I think this is because of a few things. First of all, we're talking about countries that have a really high degree of smartphone connectivity, okay? That's first and foremost. Like, these are all countries that have a very high penetration of smartphones amongst their general population, the first thing. Second of all, these are pretty much all countries that have relatively unstable national fiat currency, which, third of all, leads to a good reason why these countries also have, are crypto literate in these countries, right? So people have had reason over the past 10 years to begin to learn about Bitcoin, Ethereum, other cryptocurrencies, and how they present potentially a compelling alternative to national fiat currencies. I forgot Cuba, but Cuba is also a fast riser for us as well. But throughout Latin America, we see a lot of adoption. Although I have to say, some of the most interesting use cases I've seen have come from transnational use cases. Okay. Which we can go into, but there's one that I would love to share, so I'm just going to take the opportunity to share it, which is actually a local guy here in Israel. Coincidentally, we don't have that many users here in Israel, but just so happens to be an Israeli guy who works for a food bank, and he essentially has been using GoodDollar as a fundraising mechanism for him. He's saying, all of my GoodDollars that I collect, I'm going to donate to this food bank, and I'm looking for corporate sponsors to match. Okay, I'm looking for corporate sponsors to help match my donations of GoodDollars. He found one, amazing, great success story, we love it. But the really interesting stuff is that the GoodDollar global community, so specifically a user that I think is living in Indonesia right now, saw the work that he's doing and said, I love this idea. I'm also going to collect I'm going to collect GoodDollars for this food bank just out of the goodness of his heart. Okay. And so actually what he's done now is run a global fundraising campaign to help support this guy's work at a local Israeli food bank. And so these global examples of people reaching across borders, reaching across nation states, really having no incentive to do it other than the goodness of their heart is, the reason why I think there's a role for GoodDollar in the world, right? To see people wanting to do good and do good for one another.
Thank you for sharing this example. I mean, I would take one more question, and then I think you can also explain how to spend GoodDollar and what your experiences were so far with that. I mean, basically looking at new projects, I try to learn to go and find the smart contracts out there, because I think one of the key features that blockchain offers is that it's open source, that you're super transparent, and I think you did a great job with the dashboard, showing the numbers and being really upfront with that. I had a little bit issues, to be honest, to find the smart contracts. I was looking on the Ethereum blockchain, and afterwards, I learned that you're using this layer 2 technology, which is called Fuse, and which has an whole own explorer to find these smart contracts. And maybe you could explain a little bit more about the reserve, who is eligible to sort of give money into this reserve, how to collect the interest, and which protocols you use for that. I mean, maybe a few of our listeners are interested in sort of staking some of their cryptocurrencies towards your protocol.
Absolutely. So the idea behind GoodDollar is that we actually can wrap around any DeFi protocol or any yield generating instrument, okay? So the way that the smart contracts are designed is not that GoodDollar needs to be integrated one-off with each and every protocol, but rather that GoodDollar can wrap around any protocol. So currently, the wrapper that we're wrapped around is Compound, which is one of the leading protocols, lending, savings, and loans protocols within the crypto space. Although we are actually, the DAO is going to release a bunch of bounties for, I think, our next protocols, which include Aave, DMM, and potentially Yearn Finance if we can find the right model. Okay, so right now we're starting to actually expand the number of protocols that people can work with when they're deciding, okay, I want to use my crypto and support this basic income network. Okay, so where we are now is a small representation of where we're going, and of course at scale, the vision of GoodDollar is we're starting in DeFi, but the vision is that should be a system that any centralized financial institution can plug into and also support, because it's transparent, because it's clear that the money is going to real people, and because we believe that this will actually drive a real positive impact in people's lives. Okay, so we're starting in DeFi, but ultimately the vision of GoodDollar is to plug into the trillions of dollars of institutional capital out there that are sitting latent, generating interest for banks that already have more money than they know what to do with, and instead providing an alternative for what to do with all of those compounding funds. Okay, so there's that. Second of all, who can participate? How can people participate? These are all features that we're actually releasing over the next few months. Okay, so there's basically one primary way that you can participate if you want to support the network right now. It's you can send your crypto to the GoodDollar Trust that will then create basic income based off of your donation for forever. Okay, I call it our sustainable giving mechanisms, because it's not like you're donating the money once and then it's being used for just, cash changing hands as part of a basic income experiment. Instead, what we're doing is we're going to use your contribution or your gift in a sustainable way that will create basic income for everyone for forever. Okay, so that's the first thing. Over the next few months is when we're actually going to release the ability for people to do the full flow of staking their money, using their interest, and those supporters receiving their yield payouts back.
It's interesting. This is something we can see already, I think, in the application that you have something around, was it 50K DAI staked, and that you're generating an interest of around 5 DAI daily, if I understand that correctly. I was looking for GoodDollar and Compound before, couldn't find it. Maybe I'll find it throughout the show. Today.
You won't find it. You won't find it. We're not through their we're not listed as part of their interface.
Oh, all right. So yeah, I mean, usually I would have been surprised since you launched in September if I would have found you already. But nevertheless, it's good to understand where you're heading to, and that you're also sort of starting from decentralized finance and thinking about entering the more regulated classical finance infrastructure that we see. I mean, one question that arises as well is, I mean, trying to implement universal basic income on a global level. I think one of the biggest challenges people are facing is that there's just a huge difference in how much worth $5 are. I mean, in Switzerland, I can buy a coffee with $5, more or less. Maybe
half a coffee.
In Morocco, my roots are in Morocco. In Morocco, you can have a full-fledged meal, and Morocco is, I would say, a very nicely developed country. And there are other countries where you can probably live a week or even a month with $5. So I think that's quite a tough challenge to address in how to distribute now equally funds and still find the right amount that makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, first of all, that's a huge problem, okay? And I don't think that any one company, let alone a nonprofit like ours, is going to solve for the purchasing power parity gap between countries, right? So that's on that. I will say from our perspective, we've actually tried to build that market dynamic into the product experience, which is that one thing that's unique to GoodDollar is you have to log into your wallet and you have to claim daily. Okay, so the idea is to have there be a minimum amount of effort, but yet a certain amount of effort, so that it actually requires the individual who's receiving the income to take a step, right? So I'll tell you for myself, I work for the project, okay? And I forget to claim some days. Why? Because the reality is I'm not relying off of my digital income to pay my bills or to build my business or pay my rent or whatnot, okay? But there are many, many users who have the time, focus, attention, and have claimed every single day since we launched September 8th. Okay?
I love that answer, because you could have gone at the high level and explained by mechanisms and artificial intelligence and trying to really, but actually I can prove what you said. I made a subscription and I claimed twice just because of interest, but that's why this? Because I'm not in an urgent need. And I found exactly this very, very nice and interesting approach saying, hey, we can't level that equality. That's not possible. Not, as you said, no NGO around the world made it possible. And we will always have these currency differences, which is big part of the inequality. And now we have this chance with the digital currencies, but still, how do you handle that inequality? And I just, sorry, drop it in, but I found this great, the way you deal with this, because it's just Simple and clever.
We refer to it as, there are all these proof of work terms in blockchain. We refer to it as proof of need. Okay. That if you really need the income, you're going to have the mental time and attention and focus on taking that extra step and remembering to claim every single day. And I have to say, I think that's why it's no accident that our top users are from countries that have unstable fiat environments and where people are actually crypto literate, is because they really understand that over time, something like GoodDollar has the potential to be a huge project with millions and millions of users. And as an early adopter, they will benefit from that.
So do you see this high frequency of daily claims in poorer countries?
It would be a gross generalization to say yes, but I would say I know where our users are. I know where our active users are. And yeah, they're not in the wealthiest countries where we have users.
Yeah. Then I already jumped in. I have one question. I claimed GoodDollar, and then I saw you have a marketplace on Facebook, and then I was like, oh, great. First naive thinking of, there I can share my value or get something out of my GoodDollars, or even give my GoodDollars to something good. And then I found there, sorry to say, a little bit much Russian YouTubers who give me $5 GoodDollars if I follow their channel.
Yeah.
Is that I'm pretty sure you don't curate that, but actually I'm seeking a little bit into this. Are you I guess that marketplace just runs itself, but do you want to curate this, or is that just you give it free and that's the way it develops, or what's happening?
Yeah, totally.
What's happening out in the market with the GoodDollar?
What's happening out there?
Yeah.
So you got it right. That is the marketplace is basically like community run, community administered. We're actually I represent the foundation, right? So we have a number of discussions internally of like, how much do we invest in marketplaces versus how much do we basically encourage community members to create their own marketplaces? Because at the end of the day, every user has the same experience as you, which is, okay, great, I got this thing. Now, like, how do I actually use this thing, right? Like, how do I actually exchange the value? So I'd say that, first of all, you're right. It's a community-initiated marketplace. We're not curating it. Okay. What we're going to do is a matter of actually debate, right? Mm-hmm. But we know for sure that people want to have a way to use their GoodDollars. And we see this because there's not only one community marketplace, there's over 50 that I can think of that have been initiated by the community, which is all based on basically local representatives in their own country, in their own language, trying to establish their own GoodDollar marketplaces, their own communities for people within their own geography to have a community where you basically know who's qualified, right? So we're aware of the marketplace. How are people using the marketplaces? That's another question, mm-hmm. right? Because I think this is actually a really philosophical question of that, what you just described, right? If some guy is offering to pay me $5 GoodDollars to follow his YouTube channel, and I do it, and I know because that YouTube pays this guy based off of how many followers he has and how much engagement his videos get, and that results in him getting a bigger check from YouTube. Did GoodDollar do its job? Did we increase his income? Did we increase his economic activity? You could say yes, right? So that's just one example, right? One example. Because we know social media engagement translates into real dollars for content creators. So that's for that one, the one example that you mentioned. Not that it's the best use case, but it's just one way to think about it, okay? The other ways I'd say are, like I said, I break them down into entrepreneurship, people that are using good dollars to further their own businesses, of which I'd put the Russian YouTuber in there, but I would also put in that camp other people that are trying to start new businesses for good dollars. So for example, I can think of one guy who started a gift card business, right? He will provide you with local gift cards in exchange for good dollars. So that's like another example of someone who's trying to create a business using good dollar as a tool. There are other examples of people who are using good dollars essentially as lead gen for their businesses. Okay, like basically I'll give you a cheap logo because I want new design customers, right? I'll do something freemium model essentially for digital services people. There are also people who are actually really leaning into the peer-to-peer used services or digital services market. So we have a few community members now that have been experimenting with a new marketplace that actually is based off of like geolocation and a lot less of that YouTube stuff. So we hope to maybe we'll endorse it soon. Okay. And then the third thing is actually is kind of like that social good use case, right? People who are looking to use good dollar as a tool to help incentivize good work that they're doing for their communities anyway. Okay, so these are the most amazing, heartfelt examples. The guys who are planting trees for their good dollars, the people who are picking up trash for good dollars, the people who are actually that food bank example that we discussed. So there's lots of really cool examples of social entrepreneurship where you see people kind of playing at the intersection of altruism and incentive, which I think there's a lot more room left to explore.
Super. Hey, before I go into user questions, which I think is interesting, it's great your answer, because you're completely right. If you spend $5 good dollars or you spend $5 bad dollars or dollars, excuse me, you for a YouTube subscription, it's a discussion of whether you do it or not, and and if you want to really pay to subscribe to a channel you're not interested, because the normal marketplace and the business of YouTube works like that. So it's great to hear that local communities, social communities, and social entrepreneurial stuff is happening. And specifically what I like most is that people start to explore new things, new ways, experimenting with stuff like the food banks you mentioned. And so it's really great. Us also doing experiments for business specifically in digitalization or with UBI. It's great to hear that you already managed to launch a platform that endorses people to do so. And so I didn't mean saying it's only YouTube subscribes business out there for you, but I wondered exactly what the marketplace is going. But now I have
the thing that's so interesting is that good dollar is a tool, right? It's an open tool for the market to decide how it's going to use, right? So people have said that many times about money as a tool, and this token is just a representation of value. Well, the challenge is that there's, in most projects, in most experiments, there's a risk to experimenting, right? Yeah. Because you need to buy in, right? So for most people, it's not free to experiment. And the idea behind good dollar is actually, if we create a free system that at its heart is providing free money as a free tool, what will the people do with it? Because they don't have to buy in. There's no cost to trying. Yeah. They just have to try. Yeah. And so I think that's the experimental part, and the low barriers to entry is definitely key to why we think we'll see a lot more experimentation, right? Just because the barriers to entry and the risk profile of what it takes to become a user or to join the community is so low.
Yeah, it's great, and it's sort of already pre-answered the question from a user, from Ale. He writes, isn't proof of need easy to shortcut by automation? In brackets, your code is open source, so automation is easy, right?
Maybe I can take that.
Yes.
Yeah, go for it. If you want to talk about solving digital identity on chain, go ahead.
No, I mean, basically, it's the experience I had claiming my first GoodDollar, and I had to just show my video and prove that I'm human. I'm sure that you can fake that, but basically, with all security mechanisms, I think there's no system which you can build that can't be cheated. You just make it more expensive for it to be cheated, and then you will find an equilibrium where these like 1% that cheat need to make so much effort into it that it doesn't make any sense. But maybe you can add on to this a little bit more. I mean, that was basically the experience I had, and I asked Silvan as well, hey, did you also have to sort of share your camera and show that you're a human at that point when you're claiming your GoodDollar?
Yeah, so you're totally right that we believe that at the end of the day, there will be enough solutions that will solve for this. I'll tell you what our thinking or our motivation between why we selected the camera identity method that we did, and defend that choice, if you will. When you're operating in blockchain, it's a constant balance between privacy and security. Okay, this is how I look at it, which is that I can have my own blockchain wallet. I can have it on the blockchain. I can, no one will know who it belongs to. No one will know that it's mine, and no one will help me if I lose my private keys. Okay. So on this hand, I have a lot of privacy, but I don't have any security, if you will. On the other hand, we're all familiar with centralized services in terms of it's very easy to recover my Facebook account number. It's very easy to re-log into my Twitter account. But we also know that we give up a huge amount of privacy for the convenience of those services, right? So this is the, in software, in decentralized services, this is the constant balance, is how do we provide a user experience that actually takes the best of both worlds, if you will. We also know that one of the major challenges in cryptocurrencies, in working on open blockchain networks, is the user experience, right? It's I don't know, you ask someone, go and open a MetaMask and buy Ethereum. Many people, it will take them 3 days if they succeed at all. Okay, like that's the experience for most people who aren't highly technical. So the question for us is, okay, so how do we bring people on into this world, into the field of digital assets? How do we do it in a way that's actually giving them a decentralized wallet, where they actually have their own blockchain wallet, where they control their own information and they control their own funds? Okay, how do we do it? Oh, and by the way, we're targeting people who probably don't have a bank account, might not have legitimate ID, and we can't assume that they have any literacy when it comes to blockchain or blockchain funds or private keys or public keys or anything. And we want to launch as soon as possible. So these are the considerations that we're taking into consideration. So the reason why we chose face verification, what everyone's referring to, is that when you create a wallet, what we ask you to do is essentially turn on your cell phone camera and take a selfie video of your face. And what does this do? It's designed to identify that you're a real live human being. You're not just a bot. You're not just an AI image of a person. And you don't match, it's basically, you don't match any of the other faces in our system. Now, we don't store the images of the faces. They're all totally anonymized. They're hosted elsewhere. We don't control anyone's images. We don't have access to them, okay? But this is a system that we decided to implement because we decided it was in software, we say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Actually, Voltaire said it, but we say it a lot in software too, because we thought that it was the best way to bring in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of unique users. It would be secure enough to avoid massive fraud, and that the user experience would be painless and easy enough to enable us to actually appeal to the target audience, which are people who probably don't have a MetaMask. So, and it won't be that easy for them to do so. So those are the thinking, that's the thinking behind the wallet. We also are passionate followers of the space of decentralized ID. There are a lot of really smart organizations and people out there that are working on decentralized ID as their core focus. And so this is an area where we're betting that someone else will solve.
Great. I hope they're faster than the Swiss government, because we're just right now having a debate going on about our EID, which is about to be privatized by or developed by private banks and insurances, what we actually don't like much. But I don't want to get too deep into politics. But I'm really looking forward for an international digital ID or something. We can move on in digital in the digital age of society. Hey, the guy Alain, he says less convenient UX but more secure, always a trade-off. So you're really a good marketing person. Even he's sort of, hey, couldn't that be done different and shortcutted? Is answered conveniently, as I see. Hey, we're already like heading 3/4 of an hour in our talk. It was very great. I would love to dig into a few more things, a bit out of digital crypto
Sure.
and blockchain, although I found it very interesting. And I'm sure we have people out there who are also knowledge in depth. But hey, the COVID crisis, or whoever we want to call it, SARS-CoV-2 or whatever, was that did that push you through? I mean, like we started a project also last year, and we got pushed through a bit. The whole worldwide topic of UBI or basic income, unconditional basic income, called in Switzerland, has been pushed much. So did you feel it on your side that people have more need or interest in such things?
So I think we can agree that 2020 was a bad year in a lot of ways, but it was a good year for universal basic income advocacy. Yeah. And I think that rising tides lift all ships, right? And I think to the extent that basic income, if I think back to when I first started working in the space, and I know you've been working in this space as a basic income advocate for longer than me, basic income is a very arcane topic, right? It was a very esoteric topic that's for idealists. No one's really taking it seriously. Yeah, of course, if we could just give money to everyone would be happy. Yeah, right. It'll never happen. It wasn't really, even though it's been a long-standing policy for many centuries, right? And there have been political proponents. Most recently, I think Andrew Yang, as part of what he did for the presidential run, really set the stage for introducing basic income as a serious policy proposal that we can afford to implement, and we can implement if we set it as a goal, right? So I think that his work in 2018 and 2019 really set the groundwork, I think, in terms of making basic income a more serious topic, so that when COVID hit and economic stimulus and putting money directly into the hands of people was selected as the mode of economic stimulus, it was, in many ways, how much more proof? Oh, and by the way, giving money to people works. It kept people out of poverty, and they injected that money back into the economy, therefore stimulating the economic activity that they desired to. How much more proof do you need that it works, right? So I think it's there's that element which I think has really shifted. I want to say the geopolitical conversation around what is the right way to approach economic stimulus, because many governments, certainly I'm an American, I've never received a check from the US government before, ever, right? So there's many tax cuts that occurred over the course of my lifetime that maybe trickled down to me. I don't know, wouldn't know, no direct connection.
But you for sure never got one who paid you for doing nothing.
But exactly, but I never ever got a check that was designed to, basically provide me with a certain level of economic protection and actually bolstered that, right? Yeah. So I think the entire conversation about what is government policy around economic stimulus, what is government policy when approaching a recession, how do we actually protect people, right? This has been fundamental. It's not just a recession. People are going hungry. People can't pay their rent. People have lost their jobs. They're really struggling, really suffering. No tax cut is going to save them, right? So how do we actually protect people? And COVID's been huge in, I think, making people really understand the stakes and also really see the proof in the pudding that it works. I think also COVID has really shone a light on how much inequality exists in the world. So not just COVID as being good for basic income, but it's actually really made it impossible to ignore how rife our richest societies are with inequality and how unfairly the economic fallout from the pandemic has affected people. Yeah. So I think, yeah.
Great, thanks for that. Hey, before we completely round up, I have one, and I think it suits a bit into you. It's maybe not, I wouldn't say it's not clear, but you also state at some point, you're stating that GoodDollar is in trial or an experiment. And my question is I wouldn't call it an experiment, but do you have a thesis you work on, or what are you heading to with the GoodDollar experiment? Are you trying to really sort the ground and check the possibilities and build a platform that can distribute worldwide fairly and among each other, or is it rather an I would call it an experiment or a trial of something? And if so, what is your really top level agenda you want to find out? And then maybe Malik has a final question. Then, yeah.
Sure. So first of all, I would say when I say that we're a trial, when I say we're an experiment, what we're trying to really prove there is what I started our conversation with, that there's enough money out there to actually pay for basic income if we can change the way that we've designed our incentive system, okay? Which is that if we can make it easy and possible for individuals and corporations to support a basic income network, we believe it can pay for itself, okay? So that's the experiment part. That's the part that's never been proven, right? So when I say that we're working on an experiment, that's the part that's yet to be proven, and that's the part we're really working towards. Now, in terms of what does that mean for the platform? What does that mean for the users? I'd say that's not as a trial-like. That's not as experimental. From there, we're working from a thesis, which is that every person deserves basic economic assets, okay? And digital assets are going to be the next major wealth multiplier for the world, okay? So we're making a claim, right? Which is that if we can connect the unbanked, the 1.7 billion unbanked, which currently are left out of the formal financial system, with the next major asset class, which we believe will be digital assets. We believe will be, if not cryptocurrencies, it will certainly be digital, right? So if we can start to work towards closing the gap between those that are currently financially excluded and the next major wealth cap, how will that basically address inequality? So that's where we're coming from.
Wow, that's perfectly final word. Maybe you have a final question?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you were addressing inequality, and reading your white paper, I read the trickle-up economy, which I find a really nice statement, basically, that we don't have trickle-down economy, but try to reverse that. Nevertheless, I'm a bit critical in a sense of looking at the dashboard and the top addresses you have. I mean, basically, what I see in the dashboard is that roughly 50 million GoodDollar was already distributed, and the top one address is holding 23 million. So I hope that this is the foundation that is holding this amount. But still, like the next one is 11, and then 9 and 7 and 4. So I mean, if we are addressing inequality with such a new system, is it not that basically we're creating a new unequal system which just benefits different people? So that's more or less a philosophical and quite a hard question, I know, but still I would want to hear your thoughts to that.
Sure. So what you're seeing is actually when you see GoodDollar accounts on that dashboard that have upwards in the millions of dollars of dashboard of GoodDollars, it's actually because those are wallets that have basically gone to the free market and collected lots and lots of GoodDollars. Okay, so these are not. When I talk about equality, inequality, what I'm referring to is a more equal system, right? So that every day the amount of GoodDollars that I claim on my phone is the same amount that anyone else receives, right? So in and of itself, we believe that there's inequality in the design. The people who have those high numbers of GoodDollars, it's not like they got them just through claiming on their cell phone. They got them because they went out onto the open market and they purchased them, okay? So I'd say it's a matter of trade-offs, right? Like we're not to design a system that is both sustainable and market incentivized and fully equal, okay? But we do believe that we can design a system that is more equal with a lower barrier to entry and still incentivizes people to actually take the financial risk to actually support it, right? So I would say that at the end of the day, every person that out there that's essentially has acquired lots and lots of GoodDollars, what it does is, and this is deep in the model, is it essentially, it actually increases the number of GoodDollars that are being printed for everyone. So what we've actually what the goal here is, how can we take the inequality that is at the heart of our world, that's at the heart of our economy, that there are very few who have a lot and many more that have less, and play with that in a way that strive towards something better, so that those people who have the money, who bought millions and millions of GoodDollars, what's unsaid is that through doing that, they have inherently created more GoodDollars for the rest of the users.
That's fantastic.
So
that's great.
I know, Silvan, you always want the last word, but you'll get it.
No,
you'll
it's
get
great
it for
because
sure.
there's so many questions. I love it.
Thank you very much for this answer. I think that was a really, 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 really tough question for you in that case. I mean, I'm super happy to see that people are experimenting on this kind of level, whereas Silvan and I with Ting, we're experimenting on a completely different level. So we try to sort of start in the market and with the current financial system and try to bring something like universal basic income to life there, whereas I think you guys or other initiatives on the blockchain like Circle UBI try to really think about a new financial system which has that already programmed in, and I think it needs both, and it needs a lot more as well to bring a universal basic income that benefits most of our society to life. So that's basically what I wanted to say, and you can have the final words, Silvan.
I was about to say the same, that we really, as it needs a lot of courage, and I really see a passion in GoodDollar, talking to you, reading your mails, your newsletter. Actually, it's really, one can feel what you're aiming at. It's not just a good business that runs and brings some cash at the end of the day. And when we really want to start to go into universal basic income in the fundamental ideology, it always is a trade-off. We noticed this with our project. You noticed there's several things. Even the initiative Switzerland was about to vote 4 years ago had to make a certain trade-off, and I think that is great to see and hear on so different levels that people working on this, going deeper into this, and trying to get closer to that ideology of the idea, and we know it's just it can't be just adopted completely the way it was thought in the ideology's way. So we need to go step by step there, and that needs a bit of courage, because it's so easily to rip a project in pieces, saying, it's not exactly on the line there, it's not exactly, and therefore I thank you, Anna, much for the work you do, for the experimenting, the way you experiment with it, and not really typical to me, that's right, but I give you the last word, and thank you very much for having this talk.
It's my pleasure, and I'm so happy to come out here and share what we're working on to a larger basic income community. Like you mentioned, it's a different approach, but I really believe many of us are motivated from the same place of how do we build a freer, fairer, safer world for more people. And we're just getting started. And so I think that the best thing that I can ask of people is patience, because building big transformative things takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And that refers to both companies and policy. And so continued support and optimism and learning is really the journey that we're on for the next decade or so, at least.
Thanks a lot, Anna. Thanks a lot, Malik.
Thank you.
Yeah. Greets to Israel, to the world. On the 8th of February, we have a talk with Mansour. He's, in English, Chief Executive Officer or whatever from the Stiftung Grundeinkommen from Germany, and they're digging a bit deeper into science and what it's possible and where are the limits of science and UBI. And yes, please jump in, 8th of February at the same time. Anna, have a great day. Malik, thanks for being here. And Kuble here, the guys in the back, the team, the tech team here, wonderful job, super studio, super easygoing, and everybody have a nice day.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.